Hi everyone, it's been quite a while since my last video. It's probably been about 2 years or something ridiculous like that. I've been meaning to do this for absolutely ages. I've had this PowerPoint ready, but I've literally just not had time to record it. I've been so busy. But I think this is a good time of year to do it because it'll be quite helpful for a lot of you. Job posts are starting to come out kind of earlier and earlier every year, so this presentation is going to be about how to write your personal statement for your first Band 5 radiographer post, and hopefully you will find it helpful. So let's get started. So I'm going to be talking about when to apply, what to include in your personal statement, what kind of things you should be talking about, how to structure it, so how we're going to lay it out. Again, these are just sort of my ideas and from my experience how is best to do it, how to start it, how to get going, using the person spec and the job description to your advantage. And I'm going to be showing you my personal statement that I submitted when I was applying for my Band 5 post, and I'm going to be going through it with some advice, and hopefully that'll give you a sort of nice idea of how to lay it out basically. So when should you be applying? There's no right or wrong time. If you are looking at applying to one specific hospital, you should be able to get an idea from asking your managers, your clinical tutors, when the job posts will be coming out. But if you're not, then you might kind of be a little bit blind to that. So I usually say to people, start getting your personal statement. You want to ideally have it written at the beginning of third year because job posts are coming out earlier and earlier every year. Usually, most of them come out in the new year, sort of Jan, Feb kind of time. But for example, when I was training, I didn't apply to my placement site, but they held their sort of open day, their recruitment day in October for the Band 5s. So you want to be ready as soon as you can. So I would recommend you start working on it sort of summer of second year, beginning of third year, kind of at the latest. You just want to have it ready so you can press send as soon as you see that job post that you want. And I would also recommend sign up for the email alerts on the NHS Jobs website, because if you don't know when the post's going to come out for the hospital that you're interested in, you want to be getting it in as soon as you can. So head on to the NHS Jobs website, type in all of your search terms, so radiographer, your radius, Band 5, and then tick the box to receive the email alerts. They do usually keep job posts open for, I'd say, maybe like 2 weeks, something like that. But I know that if they've already got enough applicants, they will close it. So you don't want to kind of be leaving it once you've seen it. Try and get it in as soon as you can. So that's why I say try and get it done ASAP. Moving on. How should you start it? This is a question that I also get asked a lot. Where do I even begin, basically? So this isn't like your personal statement that you would have written for university when you were in college, where you just do a very general personal statement and then send it off to 5 universities. This is going to be this is going to have to be specific, and it's going to have to be specific to the hospital's trust that you want to work at. You're going to need to talk about what interests you about that hospital. What is it that they've got to offer you? You could talk about, is it a specialist hospital? What have they got in the department? Is it the equipment? Stuff like that. So this is where you want to basically say who you are, where you study at, when you're going to qualify, what placements you're doing, and why you've chosen to apply to this trust and what you can bring to them. So this is basically going to be like a little summary paragraph about why their trust is right for you and why you're right for them. So it only needs to be quite a short paragraph. You don't need to go on forever and ever. Just a nice little summary, basically. So what should you be including in your personal statement? Well as the introduction, you need to talk about your placement sites. So what hospitals have you worked in, any specialist hospitals like orthopedics, major trauma, private, that kind of thing. What sort of patients have you worked with? Have you worked with peds, elderly, outpatients, A&E, that kind of thing? And this is going to be where you're generally talking about your day-to-day activities, and this is going to be where you are providing examples to match it to the personal spec. So if they say one of their essential criteria is good communication, for example, you could talk about an experience on placement where you showed good communication. So it's not just going to be like listing everything that you've done. You kind of need to match it to what they're looking for. And you also need to talk about your skills that you developed over your placements, and how it'll make you a good radiographer, and how it'll make you a good radiographer at their trust, at their hospital site. You could also talk about extracurricular activities or part-time jobs, talk about some CPD that you've done, what you're interested in going into in your future career, and how that hospital can support you with it. This will all make a little bit more sense when I show you my personal statement at the end of it. It's a little bit difficult to describe if we've not got something to look at, so we'll come back to that bit. So how should you structure your personal statement? This is just kind of like a loose guide, and this is kind of what I've based it off. So you want to do your introduction first, obviously. This is going to be quite short, just a small paragraph, and then you want to go into your placement sites. So say you've got 3 placement sites, you want to be looking at, say, like 200 words each. Again, not going into masses and masses of detail, but just saying about what you did there, what systems you've used, and then you could also talk about if you've got a part-time job or any electives that you've done after your placement sites. Then you could talk about extracurriculars and CPD, and then obviously ending with your conclusion. And the word limit for personal statements is 1,500 words. I tended to do a lot less, but then again, in most of my assignments, I'm not a big waffler. I never really get up to the word counts. Just make sure it's kind of no longer than about 2.5 pages. You know, make sure what you're saying is very concise, very relevant, that kind of thing. Now I'm going to talk to you about my little gold nugget. This is my biggest piece of advice, and this is using the person spec. These are attached along with the job description to any job application, any job post that you'll see on NHS jobs, and this is your point system basically. This is what you'll be scored against in the interview. So you need to basically use this as a tick list, and you need to check off when you've included each of the essential criteria and hopefully some of the desirables in your personal statement. And the key thing with this is you need to evidence it. You need to give an example of when you've done that in your training. You can't just list it. Say if one of the criteria is good communication, you can't just put I am good at communicating. You need to give an example behind it. And again, this will make more sense when I show you one. So this is the actual person spec from the job that I applied for. Obviously I've blanked everything out so you can't identify it basically, but you've got here your essential criteria and your desirable criteria. Some of these you don't really need to talk about, like yes, obviously you will be HCPC registered, obviously you will have a bachelor's degree in radiography, but the ones underneath, you need to give an example of each of them basically, and you need to evidence it. And this is what they're going to score you against when they're looking to see whether they're going to give you an interview or not, basically. So as long as you make sure you've got all of these in, you should be absolutely fine. So now let's look at my personal statement. I think talking about this will make everything make a little bit more sense. Let's have a look. It's been such a long time since I wrote this, so it'll be nice to see it again. Again, I've blanked everything out, so obviously you can't see where I've applied to and stuff like that. But I started off, as I said before, saying what I am, where I've studied, when I qualify, where I work, and just gone into a little bit about what attracted me to the trust. So I enjoyed the fact that they had 4 sites, gives a bit of variety, bit of a challenge. The preceptorship was important to me because I wanted to be supported. So just have a look at some of the things that you think would make it a good place to work at and add this in. So like I said, it's only a little short paragraph. It's just a very basic introduction, and then you can go into more about yourself and more about your skills and qualities and that next. I can't speak today, honestly. And then the next bit is the bulk. So again, blanked everything out. This is where you're going to talk about your placement sites. So the first one I talked about, I worked at a district general. We used CR and DR equipment, what kind of patients we saw, what kind of things I did there basically. If you recall from the person spec, let me just go back to it. Participation in the out of hours service. If we go back this way, you can see that, I don't know if you can see my mouse at all, but basically, that sentence, this year I have completed out of hours working at the trust, including nights, and that's how you evidence it basically. That's one of the things they want. This is how I've shown it in the past. And then I talked about an orthopaedic centre I worked at, talked about some of the different things I saw, audits, QA, theatres, all that boring stuff. And next is where you can get a little bit more sort of free and interesting. Once you've talked about your placement sites that you've been working at for the past 3 years, you can sprinkle a little bit more into it. So I trained throughout COVID, lucky me, but I got to do a optional deployment placement, and I could talk about this. So it was really different to any of the other placements that I'd seen. I did a lot of like portable chest x-rays, stuff like that. Did a lot of cardiology, interventional, that kind of thing. So that was something different I could include. Then the next paragraph, I talked about my part-time job. So again, during COVID, I started as an imaging assistant at one of my local hospitals, just on the bank. I did reception work, aiding in CT, MR, ultrasound, on the desks, everything you can think of basically, weekends and evenings. So that was just something else I could add into, like I had another role except for aside from radiography, like, you know, I fit in other places in the team. And then final one again, ended with a conclusion that just kind of sums me up, what I'm about, and obviously thank you for reading my application and I hope to hear back from you soon. And it was something like that. In this bit I talked about my Instagram account and what kind of stuff I get up to on there. So I've been very transparent about it from the beginning, and a little bit about my Etsy shop as well, how I help other students, and then some CPD. So if you've got anything like that, that would be, if you're active on social media, that might be something you'd like to include, because that's been becoming more and more a part of our lives these days. And then yeah, I just talked a little bit about some CPD I've been doing. So I did say that I'd like to do reporting, and I'm here now, but I've just put that I've had some seminars on PCE and red dotting kind of thing. So I've included a little sprinkle about where I'd like to go. So you might like to do that. For example, if you're interested in CT and they've got a CT program, if you're interested in ultrasound, that kind of thing. So yeah, and that brings us to the end there. I hope you've enjoyed this. I have not. I've not said that the best. I Yeah, I've not been very well recently, so my brain is all a little bit muddled. But hopefully that made sense to you. Hopefully that was helpful to you. My Instagram handle is there. I also offer a personal statement service where I have an email address. You can send me a personal statement. I will review it, add my comments, and send it back to you. That is completely free. So if you have a personal statement for either university, band 5, band 6, or I guess I could read your band 7 ones now since I've got a training post. That was quite scary. If you would like to send me a personal statement, then that is absolutely fine. All of the details are on my Instagram. It's in my highlights. It's in the first highlight reel that's titled PS Service, so you can find it in there. And yes, thank you for watching, and hopefully I can do more of these soon for you.